Alright guys, we have the edit page, so if we go to profile and we click on edit, we have the form with everything in it. Now we need the API route to submit to. So let's close that up for a minute and let's create the route. So we'll go to API, and remember we're using RESTful routes, so to update it would be API/properties/ ID / whatever the ID is. Right, and it would be a put request. Right now, we have a get request to this endpoint. We have a delete request, so now we need a put request. Now, this is going to be pretty similar to the add route, which is properties, route.js, and then the post. So why don't we just copy this, because that builds the object that we want to submit and everything, and it uploads the image, although we don't need that part because remember this edit form doesn't include images. But we'll copy that whole post route and then go back into properties ID route.js, go down to the bottom here, paste that in, and then let's change, let's say this is going to be a put request to API properties / and then the ID. We're going to change this to put. Okay, and then let's see, we're going to need the params because we got to get the ID. So remember, we just do this, params. And then we're getting the session user. So we have the user ID, and we want to check to make sure the user ID or that user owns that property. So remember, we're going to get to that in a second. But before we do that, we have to get the actual property. So let's go down. We have the form data. We can still do this, right? We do need to get the ID of the property. So why don't we go right here and say const ID, and we can get that from params. Remember params.id, that's going to get it from the API URL. And then we're not dealing with images, so you can get rid of this right here. We do want to keep the amenities right here. Get rid of that. And then above where we set the property data, let's say const, let's put a comment here and say get property to update. So we'll say const existing property, set that to await, and then we'll use the property model. We're going to use find by ID and then pass in the ID. So that'll get the property. Let's make sure that it exists. So we'll say if not existing property, then let's return new response, and we'll say property does not exist, and send a status of 404. All right, then we want to check, or let's just say verify ownership. So we can do that just like we did for the delete. We're going to check the existing property. We'll check the owner, and let's just do toString. So if that is not equal to the user ID, which is in the session, then I'll just copy that. Then we're going to return a response, which is going to be a 401 unauthorized, and we'll change the message here to unauthorized. Okay, so now we can create the property data, and most of this is going to stay the same. Let's see, the type, name, description, location, baths, amenities, rates, seller info, user ID. Yeah, so this is going to stay the exact same. We're not even doing any image stuff here. And all this image stuff that we did from Cloudinary, we're just going to get rid of that. So we can delete all the way down to where we actually save the property. Now to save it, it's going to be a little bit different because we're not going to use let's see, we're not creating a new property, and we're not going to use save. We're going to use find by ID and update. So let's get rid of those lines, and then let's say update property in database. So we can say await property model dot find by ID and update, and then pass in the ID and the property data object. And that should do it. And then what we want to return, we don't want to redirect, so we can actually get rid of that. And then I'm going to uncomment this because we want to send back a response. And let's see, should we send? Yeah, let's just, you know what, let's do this. Let's say const I was initially just going to send a message, but we might as well send the updated property. So let's say new property, or not new, but updated property. And then let's send back right here. What am I doing? Updated property 200. Now we need to go back to the form and submit to this API route. So let's go to components, property edit form, and go to the handle submit. We're going to pass in the event parameter here. Let's say e.prevent default, and then we'll open up a try catch. And in here, let's do const res. Let's await fetch, and we want to hit the /API/properties and then /the ID, which we can get from just ID, because the ID we got up here using use params, that gets the ID from the URL. All right, so let's see. Back in the handle submit, this will make a GET request. That's not what we want, so let's add in an object here, and let's set a method of put, and then we want to send the form data. So what we can do is say body, and then just send form data. Okay, actually we didn't get the form data yet, did we? So that's pretty easy. We can just go right up here and say, actually let's do it in the try. So const form data, let's set that to new, and then uppercase form data, and we can just pass in e.target. All right, now let's go under the response variable and let's check it. So we'll say if the response.status is equal to 200, then let's redirect. We'll take our router and push, and we're just going to go to the actual listing. So backticks and then /properties/ID. Then I also want to check for a 401 or a 403, which would be unauthorized. So let's say else if, and say if the res.status is equal to a 401 or res.status is equal to 403, then let's do a toast.error, and we'll say permission denied. Okay, and then we'll just have an else, and if something else went wrong, then we'll just do a toast.error, and we'll just say something went wrong. Yeah, and then in the catch, we'll do a toast.error, and same thing, we'll just say something went wrong. And I'm just going to console log the error. All right, so I think we should be able to do this. So, whoops, let's go back to one of these listings here, edit. And I'm just going to add a 1 to the title, Boston Commons Retreat 1. Click update, and we get something went wrong. So put getting a 500. Let's check the server log, console log here. So let's see, what do we got? Cannot read properties if undefined, reading 2 strings. So it looks like, oh, there we go. I misspelled owner. You guys probably saw that a while ago. So let's do that. And then I'm going to just change this, try this again. So 1, update property. And there we go, Boston Commons Retreat 1. If I go to the properties page, Boston Commons Retreat 1. All right, so if you want to just test a little more, like we could add something in here, I guess. This is a, we'll say, very beautiful apartment. We'll change it to 121 Tremont Street. We'll do, say, 3 bedrooms, and we'll add 24/7 security. Okay, so 121 Tremont, 3 bedrooms, 24/7 security. So all the changes I made are now reflected. So now we have complete CRUD, create, read, update, and delete for our property listings. And we have not only authentication, but we have authorization, right? So if you want to test the authorization, you could come in here where we verify ownership and just temporarily change the user ID to like 11, so just something that's not the user ID. And if you try to update, right, so I'll try to update now, and we get permission denied. Okay, so obviously it has to be the user that's logged in has to be the owner, which is obviously what we want. All right, cool, guys. So now I think we're pretty much done with managing the properties. So now we can move on to some of the other features, such as the map. We want to show a map with a marker. We want to be able to bookmark properties and then go to saved properties and have all those bookmarks. We want to be able to share on social media. We want to be able to contact the manager and implement the messaging system. So we're going to get to all that stuff next.